Good afternoon, ka-family. I am Camila Lipio for TV Patrol. Post 4 to the pre-martial law period, 1945 to 1972, has been proclaimed as the golden age of Philippine journalism. The Phil Press began to be known as the Priest in Asia in this period. We now have a report from Crisel Talyadan, live from the Romulo Residences. Crisel?
Yes, Camille, I'm here right now at Romulo Residences. And I was able to interview Kaka Romulo a while ago, the great-granddaughter of Carlos P. Romulo. And she said that the press functioned in that period as a real watchdog of the government. It was sensitive to the national issues and critical of the government's mistakes and abuses. Among its practitioners were a clutch of scholarly, noble-minded writers and editors, including Carlos P. Romulo, her great-grandfather, Mauro Mendez, Arsenio Lacson, Modesto Farolan, Leon Guerrero, Armando Malay, S.P. Lopez, and Jose Bautista, to name a few. Back to you, Camille.
Thank you, Crisel Talyadan, live from Romulo Residences. We now move on to Ria Reyes, live from Santo Domingo Church.
Yes, Camille, I'm here at the Santo Domingo Church, and we witnessed a while ago the wedding of Don Eugenio Lopez to the newspaper Manila Chronicle. The press, during this period, was forced into a marriage of convenience with large business enterprises and political groups, just like when Don Eugenio Lopez bought Manila Chronicle from a group of pre-war newspapermen in 1945. Most of the newspapers were wholly or partly owned by large business complexes. Some newspaper had control and interest in other media, particularly radio and television. Back to you, Camille.
Thank you, Ria Reyes, live from Santo Domingo Church. After careful research, it has been found that in 1952, the National Press Club was organized to promote cooperation among journalists and uphold press freedom and the dignity of journalists. The pre-war newspapers were revived in this period, including Manila Bulletin and Philippine Herald. Up next, the controlled and alternative press during the Marcos years. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Bulilit, sanay sa masikip. Kung kumilos, ang liit-liit. Bulilit. Kung kumilos, ang liit-liit.
Sa bagong bahay, may magandang buhay. Ganito na kami ngayon sa Camellia.
Welcome back, ka-family. We now have a live interview with Crisel Talyadan again, who has now gone from the time machine to report about the journalism situation during martial law. Crisel!
Where am I?
Hoy! Oh!
Yes, Camille. When martial law was declared in September 21, 1972, the first order issued by the late President Ferdinand E. Marcos was to take over and control of all privately owned newspapers, magazines, radio and television facilities, and all other media communications. You might hear. Anyway, let's continue. Editors and journalists were among the first to be arrested and incarcerated in military prison camps. Of the pre-martial law papers, only the Daily Express and the Bulletin Today, which is known as Manila Bulletin Today, were allowed to reopen. A new newspaper, Times Journal, was allowed to open 1 month after the proclamation. These newspapers were later to be known as the establishment press. As expected, the press during the martial law period was highly controlled. Many journalists learned to practice brinkmanship, and even self-censorship in order to survive or avoid direct confrontation with the regime.
But to counter propaganda churned out by the pro-government private media and the government's own media infrastructure, the so-called alternative press emerged in the 1980s. These were a handful of tabloid newspapers and some radio stations which defied government instructions on how to handle news stories, despite constant harassment and intimidations. Among these publications and the people behind them were the father and son team of Jose Burgos, who were behind the courageous tabloid WE Forum and its broadsheet affiliate Pahayagang Malaya. Felix Bautista and Melinda Q. de Jesus edited Veritas. Raul and Leticia Locsin published Business Day, now Business World. Eugenio D. Apostol and Leticia J. Magsanok published and edited Inquirer and Mr. and Miss Magazine.
In addition to the alternative press, the people also opted for samizdat or Xerox journalism. These were news clippings, mostly from foreign publications, censored for mass dissemination by the regime, which provided an accurate reading of the developments of the country.
Many of these articles were written by Filipinos working for the foreign news services. Fernando Del Mundo working for United Press, Teddy Benigno and Roberto Colomo for AFP, Alice Villadolid for New York Times, and Nelly Sindayan for Time Magazine.
The nationalistic fervor was also strongly manifested among the youth through campus publications, which have taken activist stance on national issues. Notable among them were the Philippine Collegians of UP Diliman, ang Malaya of the Philippine College of Commerce, now Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Pandayan of Ateneo de Manila University, ang Hasik of the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila, and Balawis of Papua Institute of Technology. Women journalists proved to be equally daring than men in their writing. The emergence of the so-called alternative press came about essentially through the efforts of women editors in journalism. Several women journalists were subjected to harassment, threats, and intimidation by the military. Among these courageous women journalists were Eugenia Apostol, Betty Cobelmonte, Letty Magsano, Nina Stacho Olivares, Dominic Torrevillas, Melinda de Jesus, Tina Manzon Palma, Malu Mangahat, Sheila Coronel, and Ceres Doyle. Among the outstanding heroes during the struggle against the Marcos regime was Joaquin Chino Roque, publisher of the pre-martial law, the Manila Times, and regarded as the grand old man of Philippine journalism. Back to you, Camille.
Those are the flaming news for tonight. Again, I'm Camille Elipio for TV Patrol. Good evening.